came to the set the first time with between 300 and 400 books, because I didn't have a permanent place, because I was on the road such a lot. I used to take my entire library with me. And I remember sitting in a very stone state in the living room in the hotel, and Nick and Candy came in to talk with me. And I was rushing from one book to another, from the complete works of Francis Bacon, with a section on, I think it was New Atlantis, the description of the recording studio, to some tome on Israel Regardie or something like that. And I just reading paragraph after, and Nick said at the end, he said, "Your trouble is, David, you don't read enough." I was so insulted. I didn't know it was a joke. That pretty much shows where I was at. I had absolutely no idea that he was taking the rise.
Somebody has pointed it out later.
It's a joke.
It's a joke, David. What does he mean I don't read enough? Look, I've got 300 books. Some of them first edition. Right, coincidentally, it was coincidentally, I can't say it was in any way preparation. I was reading Listen Little Man at the time. But it must have had some bearing on trying to tell the world of some imminent danger and not succeeding. And that's pretty much also part of Newton's agenda.
Makes me feel so good. Gives me something to believe in. Everybody needs that, a meaning to life. I mean, when you look out at the sky at night, don't you feel that somewhere out there, there's got to be a God? It's got to be.
That somehow there's a certain destiny, fate, prescience, a certain inevitability about their coming together. I think that happens in life too, that we have some sort of sets, we have our own self-will, but there's something mixed in with predestination. It isn't as linear as we think it is. I guess that's what perhaps could be differently described as predestination if we don't think of it as an entirely linear affair from back to front. Our will is to change it, but it will happen in a different form, but it is all happening at once.
Francis. You can come in, Tommy. Don't be embarrassed.
We did a lot of handheld work. We were shooting in natural locations, and they were virtually motel. A lot of them were just motel rooms, and the question of fitting people in, we just had no space for dollies. It was before the Steadicam. The operator was a wonderful man called Heyman. There's an extraordinary relationship between the director and the operator. He is the eye, he's your eye, and I was very lucky. I enjoyed working with him many, many times. He's an extraordinary operator, but on many occasions even he couldn't get into the rooms with me at the same time, and the actors. I had to operate myself on a lot of that handheld stuff, but I didn't like doing it. He's such a wonderful operator.
We've handed song sheets out today of an old English hymn.
I presumed, I don't know why, probably because I was arrogant enough to think it so, therefore I acted upon it, that I had been asked to write the music for this film. And I spent 2 or 3 months putting bits and pieces of material together. I had no idea that nobody had asked me to write the music for this film. That in fact it had been an idea that was bandied about. And I constructed a thing which in the death never became the soundtrack to the movie, but became the album Low. Some of it went on to Station to Station, but another chunk of it went on to Low, which was the album that I did with Brian Eno in Berlin a few years later.
I'm rather glad that happened.
So am I. Well, as it happens, the Low album then was performed on Friday and Saturday night this weekend by Philip Glass, who was turned into a symphony. So I think The Visitor, it would have been The Visitor, and I think that's quite lovely that this should be coming out again in its original form, alongside Low, which has been sort of dusted off and released again.
When Low came out, I was really quite thrilled that it came out, only David could know that, but prompted somehow by the film or the experience. But I remember, as David said, he worked on it, we had a time thing, and so that was not abandoned, but it was nothing formal, and it drifted away, and I think it became involved in another concert tour, and it drifted away, but it went away.
Yeah, it went away. Leave me alone, leave my mind alone.
I was rather glad that because it gave it another connection and somehow continued on.
Yeah, there have been links all the way through.
So I had to move on. We moved on, and I'd known John Phillips, and I showed him the stuff, and he loved it, and he knew David, and it was all right with David. And some time later, David sent me the album of Low. He said this was the music I think I would have done for Man of Fell to Earth. In fact, he used a still from Man of Fell to Earth on the cover of the album, you know. It's an extraordinary album, Low. It's wonderful stuff. The train, you know, she talks about like going on trains in Oklahoma with her granny, and the train that he left on.
Bloody train. I remember, Nick, when the train came, it was nothing like the thing that he'd envisaged. Am I correct in this? And that train rolled up in the middle of the desert. He went blue in the face, then he went red and then white. What is that? It's your train, sir. That's not a train, it's a fucking dog kennel. But we live with it, and as it happens, it has an endearing quality to it, the train, that it's so sweet to look at that, and then the freight train that I see from the window.
Concession stands were gone.
And there's our train. I think Candice, one of Candice's best little monologues is her monologue in the car, waiting for the train to go past. I love that scene.
It's a shame. I used to like trains.
Sooner or later, all things are connected. All knowledge, all action is connected. But not necessarily in a constant flow. No matter what we do, sooner or later it is known. You're always seen. It came out of a joke when Paul and I were working one night. You know, either one of us, I can't remember which one, had been somewhere in the afternoon. Perhaps we'd said, "Oh, I'm busy this afternoon, I can't make it." The car was parked outside another house. And quite out of the blue, someone said, "Oh, I saw your car in Chelsea this afternoon. What were you doing in Chelsea?" You're always seen, sooner or later, you know. There's a scene when we realise this stranger is coming down a coal heap, slag heap, and a person comes in and on the brow of the hill and sees him. That's all. He sees him. Much later in the film, when he's asked, "Did anybody see you?" he said, "No, nobody saw me," and of course, he was seen. I guess in the normal course of narrative, we would have seen that man who saw him go away and say, "Yeah, he's moving into the little town," and no, we don't know. But someone saw him, and we're always seen. It's very difficult not to be.
I love our rides in the country, don't you, honey?
This scene is the closest thing, without trying to get into special effects, of a crossing and an immediacy of time. Here, this pioneer family, they see something, this vehicle. It's not a space vehicle, it's something that is going to happen in the world, a motor car. That's the science fiction part of it. That only that little pioneer family, that little group, couldn't even, I'd say, what is it? They say, "Look at that," and they look, and it's gone. They would probably dismiss it, or when they reached wherever they were going from their camp, they would say, "We saw this strange thing." "Sure, yeah, okay, let's put the chow on." That would be dismissed. This is a science fiction film with not a lot of science fiction tools in it. But let's say, without quoting other films, there are many science fiction films that a certain familiarity, so you're happy with it. You know, the spaceship, the alien with a big head. You know, we were trying to make it disquieting and alien sense of film. What we were trying to aim at was that sense of even the familiar is strange. Even the familiar is strange, looked at in a different way, thought about in a different way. You know, it was all shot on location, the whole film was shot on location, except for a tiny bit in the special effects studio, a couple of days or so. We were there in New Mexico, 8 weeks, 9 weeks maybe. I think 5 days in Los Angeles. The distances were the main thing, you know. Pretty big area. The White Sands and Santa Fe and Artesia.
Next is an extremely difficult editing pattern, and I don't think it could ever be submitted to a storyboard because much of it is made up afterwards. I've seen flaws in what we call standard continuity quite a number of times, but they don't matter because that's not what the scene intends to do. There are peculiarities of the clothing or lack of it in one of the love scenes. Things sort of